It was almost midnight and I was driving home after a long shift at work. My stomach growled, reminding me that I hadn't eaten since lunchtime. Most places were closed at this hour, but I remembered seeing a small burger joint a few blocks from my usual route. It wasn't a chain, just a standalone diner with a flickering neon sign that read Big Bob's Burgers. I decided to give it a try. As I pulled into the parking lot, I noticed that the diner seemed oddly out of place. It had an old-fashioned, almost retro look to it, like something out of the 1960s. The parking lot was empty, and the only light came from the flickering sign and the dim bulbs inside the diner. I hesitated for a moment, but my hunger won over my caution. I parked the car, got out and pushed open the door. A small bell chimed as I stepped inside, and the smell of grilled meat hit me instantly. It was mouth-watering and I felt my stomach rumble in anticipation. The diner was nearly empty except for a single person behind the counter. Bob, I assumed. He was a heavy-set man with a thick, graying mustache, wearing a grease-stained apron. He looked up and smiled when I walked in, but there was something strange about his smile. It was too wide, too perfect, like it was practiced. "Welcome to Big Bob's," he said, his voice gruff but friendly. "What can I get you tonight?" I glanced at the menu, which was displayed on a chalkboard above the counter. There weren't many options, just a basic burger, a cheeseburger, and something called the Midnight Special. I was tempted to ask what the special was, but I was tired and didn't feel like striking up a conversation. "I'll just have a cheeseburger," I said, keeping it simple. Bob nodded, still smiling, and turned to the grill. As he started cooking, I took a seat at one of the booths near the window. The place was eerily quiet, with no music playing, no chatter, just the sizzle of the grill and the hum of the fluorescent lights. I noticed that there were no other customers, and I wondered if the diner ever got busy. After a few minutes, Bob brought my burger over on a plain white plate. It looked pretty standard: bun, patty, cheese, lettuce, and tomato. But the smell was incredible and I realized just how hungry I was. I thanked him and took a bite. The taste was different. It wasn't bad, just not what I was expecting. The meat was tender, almost too tender, and the flavor was richer than any burger I'd ever had. For a moment, I couldn't tell if I liked it or not, but then my hunger took over and I found myself devouring it. As I ate, I glanced around the diner, taking in the details. The place had a weird vibe, like it was stuck in time. There were old posters on the walls advertising sodas and milkshakes, but they were faded and peeling. The jukebox in the corner looked like it hadn't worked in years, and the red leather on the seats was cracked and worn. But what really caught my attention were the photos. There were dozens of them, framed and hung up all along the walls, showing different people over the years. Most of them were black and white, and they all had a similar feel: people sitting at the booths, holding up burgers, smiling for the camera. But the more I looked, the more I noticed that there was something off about the photos. The people's smiles were too wide, their eyes too bright, and there was a strange, almost haunted look in their expressions. I turned back to my burger, trying to shake off the uneasy feeling creeping over me. But as I finished the last bite, I noticed Bob watching me from behind the counter, still smiling that same too perfect smile. "Good, isn't it?" he said, his voice cutting through the silence. "Yeah," I said, forcing a smile of my own. "It's different." "I'm glad you enjoyed it," Bob said. "Not everyone appreciates the Midnight Special." I froze. I hadn't ordered the Midnight Special. I was sure I'd asked for a regular cheeseburger. I opened my mouth to say something, but Bob was already moving back to the grill, humming to himself as if nothing was wrong. I glanced down at my plate and that's when I noticed it. There was something sticking out from under the bun, something small and shiny. I hesitated, then reached down and pulled it out. It was a button like the kind you'd find on a shirt, smeared with grease. My stomach churned and I felt a wave of nausea wash over me. I wanted to get up, to leave, but I felt like I was rooted to the spot, my mind reeling. I looked around the diner again at the photos on the walls, and that's when I realized what was wrong with them. The people in the photos, they were all wearing the same clothes. The same shirts, the same jackets, the same dresses. And some of those clothes looked old, like they'd been worn and washed 100 times. But the faces were different. Different people, same clothes. I felt a cold sweat break out on the back of my neck and I turned back to Bob, who was still humming, still smiling. "What is this?" I asked, my voice barely more than a whisper. "What did you put in my burger?" Bob didn't answer right away. He just kept humming like he hadn't heard me. Then he turned and for the first time his smile faded. "You really want to know?" he said, his eyes boring into mine. I didn't answer. I didn't have to. The look on my face must have said it all. Bob sighed, almost as if he was disappointed, and wiped his hands on his apron. "You're not the first to ask," he said, his voice low. "And you won't be the last. But sometimes it's better not to know." He gestured to the photos on the wall and I felt my skin crawl. They all asked too. And they got their answers. But once you know, you can't go back. I stood up, my legs unsteady, and took a step toward the door. "I think I'm going to leave now," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Bob just smiled again, but this time it was different. There was no warmth in it, just a cold, calculated amusement. "The door's always open," he said. "But once you leave, you'll always come back." I didn't wait to find out what he meant. I stumbled out of the diner, my heart pounding, and ran to my car. I drove home as fast as I could, my hands shaking on the steering wheel, the taste of the burger still lingering in my mouth. That night I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw those photos, those smiling faces staring back at me, and I heard Bob's words echoing in my head. "You'll always come back." I tried to convince myself that it was just a weird experience, that I was overreacting, but deep down, I knew there was something more to it. I tried to forget about it, to move on, but I couldn't. A few nights later, I was driving home from work again, and without even thinking about it, I found myself turning down the same street, pulling into the same parking lot. The diner was still there, the neon sign still flickering, and the smell of grilled meat wafted out, beckoning me. I didn't want to go in. I wanted to drive away, to never come back, but it was like something was pulling me, something I couldn't resist. I got out of the car, walked to the door, and stepped inside. The bell chimed and Bob looked up, smiling that same too-wide smile. "Welcome back," he said. "I knew you'd be back." I don't remember much after that. I know I sat down, I know I ordered another burger, and I know I ate it even though every bite tasted like ash in my mouth. And I know that when I left, Bob gave me a photo to take with me, a black and white picture of me sitting in the booth, holding up a burger, smiling. But the weirdest part? When I got home, I looked at the photo again and I realized that I was wearing a different shirt, a shirt I didn't own. A shirt I'd never seen before. It's been weeks now and I still can't stop thinking about it. Every night, I find myself driving back to the diner, even though I know I shouldn't. I don't want to go, but I can't help it. It's like something's pulling me, something I can't escape. And every time I go, Bob gives me another photo. There are more of them now, scattered around my apartment, pictures of me, all wearing different clothes, all with that same unnatural smile. I don't know where the clothes come from or why I keep going back, but I can't stop. Maybe it's true what Bob said. Maybe once you've had the midnight special, you can't ever leave. So if you ever find yourself driving down a dark, empty road late at night, and you see a diner with a flickering neon sign, do yourself a favor. Keep driving.